Hello, I'm Daniel, and welcome to the Emunah Project. We here at the Emunah Project are continuing in our series of videos with respect to information, education, inspiration, guidance, advice, and I want to speak very briefly about an aspect of the subject of idolatry, something that is very, very important not only to Jews, converts, returnees, Baalei Tshuva, but especially to Noahides. There's a commandment in Leviticus, chapter 19, verse 4, where it says not to turn to idols and don't make molten idols for yourselves. Now, the medieval commentary Rashi, about 1,000 years ago, explains this verse and gives us a profound message. The Elil, the idol, the molten, wooden, carved, stone, chiseled image, it's nothing. It's a man-made object. In and of itself, it has no powers. It can't speak, it can't talk, it can't move, it can't hear, it can't see. It's just an object. But, explains Rashi, if someone is foolish enough to turn to this Elil, to turn to it, to imbue it with the significance that it represents some false god, some other deity, he will slowly start to respect it, and before he realizes it, he will honor it, pray to it, and it will become a god to him, or at least a representation of a false god to him. Gods, these kind of images, these kinds of false gods, they're man-made. They are literally made by man. At first, they're nothing. And we know that they're nothing. Basically, we know it's just, a piece of wood, a piece of rock, a molten piece of iron. We know that they're nothing. But it doesn't stay that way. The person transforms this image into a god. Idolatry, avodah zarah, strange worship, is a relative term. Because one worships what one worships. It changes with time and place. Every society places its emphasis on a variety of relatively meaningless things and values. In turn, these become the idols for that generation, for that people. If one respects these things long enough, they will begin to worship them, whether it's fame, whether it's money, whether it's prestige, power, influence. These can become so important that everything else takes second place. How do they become so important? How do they gain the power to control entire lives? The people turn these things into an idol. And it's not just, there are things that you don't necessarily think of as idols. Rage, for example, and I don't mean just getting ticked off. Uncontrolled, blind rage can be an idol, because when you are this furious, when you're in the grips of this fury, this rage, everything else takes a back seat. That becomes the most important thing in your life. It's idolatry. It's avodah zarah. Once, this rabbi, the alter of Slobodka, thought I mispronounced it, he grabbed a handful of coins, and in a raised voice he exclaimed to his students, "You are playing with broken shards." He's comparing the coins, the pieces of metal, to broken earthenware. A person's desire for money and material things that this money can buy was transforming these shards, these coins, these pieces of metal into an obsession. It can become an obsession. And a person becomes the subject to that. If, at the same time, we approach a wealthy man, a rich person, who is already considerably old, and told him what the altar said, that his money that he had amassed and in which he was still obsessed was worthless, he'd laugh at us. He would think that we were crazy, that we should be thinking of spiritual things, not foolishness like this. It seems that these two points contradict each other. The answer lies in our original idea. Man creates his own idolatry, his own avodah zarah, his own idol. Man creates idol. For some, it is literally a molten god, a chiseled god, a carved god, a graven as carved. For the others, it's money. And yet for others, it's sports or a vocation, field of endeavor, a profession, which one venerates to the point of being an idol in his eyes. The rich man was unable to appreciate the insignificance of his wealth, and especially in light of the fact that at an advanced age, his spiritual orientation was of great consequence. This guy was at death's door. He may be dying tomorrow, he may be dying next year, but in a time of his life where he should have been more aware, he wasn't. And, chutzpah, he had the gall to say, you guys, you religious guys, you should be dealing with spiritual matters. They were dealing with spiritual matters. He was blinded by his idolatry. We're going to be doing more videos along these lines. Please come back. Please watch, please learn, and until next time, on behalf of the Emunah Project, I'm Daniel, and thank you so much.